and welcome to Millennium News Hour. I am Tanziba Nauri. In today's bulletin, we will present top and trending news from across the nation and the world. Let's begin with the headlines of the day. Biden declares Kyiv stands in surprise visit to Ukraine. Jimmy Carter, 39th U.S. President, enters hospice care at home. Blinken tours Turkey's earthquake zone, pledges $100 million in aid. Memphis police say 1 dead, 10 injured in overnight shooting. Sheriff says gunman kills 6, including ex-wife in Mississippi. Oakland Airport, 50K in Bay Area lose power due to fire. Mardi Gras parade shooting in New Orleans kills 1, hurts 4. Three teenage girls and gunman dead in Texas shooting. US warns China not to send weapons to Russia for Ukraine war. Richard Bilzer, stand-up comic and TV detective, dies at 78. AntMan opens big at box office with $104 million for Quantumania. Body of Ghana soccer player Atsu repatriated from Turkey. People's Court tries Vladimir Putin for war in Ukraine. Japan to give Ukraine $5.5 billion, host online G7 plus Zelensky. Japanese bid farewell to beloved panda returning to China. Brazil deluge kills 36, search continues for dozens missing. Fourteen passengers killed, 63 injured in bus crash in Pakistan. All Quiet wins 7 BAFTAs, including Best Film at UK Awards. Tatum scores All-Star record 55, Team Giannis wins 184-175. And Ricky Stenhouse Jr. wins longest Daytona 500 in history. Now news in detail. President Joe Biden paid an unannounced visit to Ukraine on Monday to meet with President Vladimir Zelensky in a defiant display of Western solidarity with a country still fighting what he called a brutal and unjust war days before the first anniversary of Russia's invasion. 1 year later, Kyiv stands, Biden declared after meeting Zelensky at Mariinsky Palace, jamming his finger for emphasis on his podium against a backdrop of 3 flags from each country. He continued, and Ukraine stands, democracy stands, the Americans stand with you and the world stands with you. Biden spent more than 5 hours in the Ukrainian capital, consulting with Zelensky on next steps, honoring the country's fallen soldiers and seeing US embassy staff in the besieged country. The visit comes at a crucial moment. Biden is trying to keep allies unified in their support for Ukraine as the war is expected to intensify with spring offensives. Zelensky is pressing allies to speed up delivery of promised weapons systems and calling on the West to provide fighter jets, something that Biden has declined to do. In Kiev, Biden announced an additional $500 million in US assistance on top of the more than $50 billion already provided for shells, for howitzers, anti-tank missiles, air surveillance radars and other aid, but no new advanced weaponry. Former President Jimmy Carter, who at 98 years old is the longest-lived American president, has entered home hospice care in Plains, Georgia, a statement from the Carter Center confirmed Saturday. After a series of short hospital stays, the statement said Carter decided to spend his remaining time at home with his family and receive hospice care instead of additional medical intervention. The statement said the 39th president has the full support of his medical team and family, which asked for privacy at this time and is grateful for the concern shown by his many admirers. Carter was a little-known Georgia governor when he began his bid for the presidency ahead of the 1976 election. He went on to defeat then-President Gerald R. Ford, capitalizing as a Washington outsider in the wake of the Vietnam War and the Watergate scandal that drove Richard Nixon from office in 1974. Carter served a single tumultuous term and was defeated by Republican Ronald Reagan in 1980, a landslide loss that ultimately paved the way for his decades of global advocacy for democracy, public health, and human rights via the Carter Center. The former president and his wife, Rosalind, 95, opened the center in 1982. His work there garnered a Nobel Peace Prize in 2002. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken took a helicopter tour Sunday of one of the provinces worst affected by the February 6 earthquake in southern Turkey and northern Syria and pledged a further $100 million in aid to help the region. This is going to be a long-term effort, Blinken said at Incirlik Air Base, a joint US-Turkish facility that has coordinated the distribution of disaster aid. The search and rescue, unfortunately, is coming to an end. The recovery is on, and then there will be a massive rebuilding operation. President Joe Biden announced $85 million for Turkey and Syria days after the earthquake that has killed more than 44,000 people in the two countries. The US has also sent a search and rescue team, medical supplies and equipment. The additional aid includes $50 million in emergency refugee and migration funds and $50 million in humanitarian assistance, Blinken said. One person was killed and 10 were injured early Sunday after a shooting in Tennessee, according to a news release from the Memphis Police Department posted on Twitter. Police released photos of 3 men they said are persons of interest shortly before noon on Sunday. One of the men may have been injured and in need of medical attention, according to police. Victims were found at 2 locations in the Whitehaven neighborhood of Memphis, about 10 miles south of downtown and near the Memphis International Airport. Police responded first to Memphis nightclub, the Live Lounge, at 12:43 a.m., according to the release. 2 victims were transported to the hospital in critical condition. 5 others with less serious injuries went to area hospitals in private vehicles and were released later on Sunday. While police were at the scene of the shooting, they were notified that other victims of the shooting were about a mile away. There, 1 male victim was pronounced dead and 3 other victims were transported to the hospital in critical condition, according to police. A lone gunman killed 6 people, including his ex-wife and stepfather, Friday at multiple locations in a tiny rural community in northern Mississippi, the sheriff said, leaving investigators searching for clues to what motivated the rampage. Armed with a shotgun and 2 handguns, 52-year-old Richard Dale Crum, who a family friend said had a history of mental illness, opened fire at about 11 a.m. and killed a man in the driver's seat of a pickup truck parked outside a convenience store in Arkabatla, near the Tennessee state line, Tate County Sheriff Brad Lance said. Deputies were working the crime scene when a second 911 call alerted authorities to another shooting a few miles away. After arriving at a home, they found a woman whom the sheriff identified as Crumb's ex-wife, shot dead, and her current husband wounded. Lance said deputies caught up with Crumb outside his own home and arrested him. Behind the residence, they found two handymen slain by gunfire, one in the road, another in an SUV. Inside a neighboring home, they discovered the bodies of Crumb's stepfather and his stepfather's sister. A power substation fire temporarily caused outages at the Oakland International Airport and left 50,000 customers around the East San Francisco Bay Area without electricity Sunday, Oakland fire officials said. The Oakland Fire Department responded to a fire on Pacific Gas and Electric property in the early afternoon and found a transformer on fire. An unidentified spokesman for the Oakland Fire Department said in a video posted on Twitter. The Oakland International Airport, which serves about 170 flights a day, lost power for nearly 2 hours, spokesman Robert Bernardo told the San Francisco Chronicle. A few security lines remained open for screening, KNTV reported. Social media posts showed large crowds of people gathered at airport baggage claim. The power outage also halted some public transportation to the airport and stalled traffic on other roadways. A shooting during a Mardi Gras parade in New Orleans killed one person, wounded 4, and sent panicked families running for cover, police said Monday. One suspect was taken into custody shortly after the shooting Sunday night, the New Orleans Police Department said. The victims were 3 males and 2 females, including 1 child, the department said. Police said all 5 were taken to the hospital, where one of the male victims was pronounced dead. The 4 other victims were hospitalized but stable Monday. The shooting happened during the Crew of Bacchus Parade, WWL TV reported, in a neighborhood outside the tourist-packed French Quarter. The route was filled with families with young children enjoying the parade when they heard gunshots, witnesses told the station. Chaos ensued as people ran, took cover, and tried to protect their children. 2 guns were recovered, Chief Deputy Superintendent Hans Gantier said. The parade was temporarily halted after the shooting. Authorities say 3 teenage girls, including one who was pregnant, were fatally shot by men who also sexually assaulted a 12-year-old girl who later escaped, then fatally shot himself. No names have been released. The killings occurred at the home of the gunman's girlfriend in the Houston suburb of Galena Park at about 10:30 p.m. Saturday. The girls who were killed were 19, 14, and 13, according to Harris County Sheriff Ed Gonzalez. The 38-year-old man then attacked the 12-year-old and then told her to run out of the house, Gonzalez said. She grabbed a 1-year-old baby girl and fled. She ran out of the residence without any clothing to the home of a neighbor who called Galena Park office. When she ran out, she managed to think about it, thankfully, and was able to grab the 1-year-old and ran away, Gonzalez said. Both girls were hospitalized for treatment of injuries that were not life-threatening, according to a statement from Galena Park Police. The investigation has been turned over to the Sheriff's Department. US intelligence suggests China is considering providing arms and ammunition to Russia, an involvement in the Kremlin's war effort that would be a serious problem, Secretary of State Antony Blinken said. Blinken said the United States long has been concerned that China would provide weapons to Russia. He pointed to Chinese leader Xi Jinping's promise to Russian President Vladimir Putin of a partnership with no limits when they met just weeks before Putin sent his troops into Ukraine on February 24, 2022. Since then, ties between the two countries have only grown stronger. We have been watching this very closely, and for the most part, China has been engaged in providing rhetorical, political, diplomatic support to Russia. But we have information that gives us concern that they are considering providing lethal support to Russia in the war against Ukraine, Blinken said in an interview that aired Sunday, a day after his meeting at a security conference in Munich with Wang Yi, the Chinese Communist Party's most senior foreign policy official. Richard Bilzer, the longtime stand-up comedian who became one of TV's most indelible detectives as John Munch in Homicide, Life on the Street and Law and Order SVU, has died. He was 78. Bilzer died Sunday at his home in southern France, his longtime friend Bill Scheft said. Scheft, a writer who had been working on a documentary about Bilzer, said there was no known cause of death, but that Bilzer had been dealing with circulatory and respiratory issues. The actor Henry Winkler, Bilzer's cousin, tweeted, "Rest in peace, Richard." For more than 2 decades and across 10 series, even including appearances on 30 Rock and Arrested Development, Bilzer played the wisecracking, acerbic homicide detective prone to conspiracy theories. Bilzer first played Munch on a 1993 episode of Homicide and last played him in 2016 on Law and Order SVU. Phase 5 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe may have gotten off to a rocky start, but AntMan is bigger than ever at the box office. AntMan and the Wasp: Quantumania opened with 104 million in domestic ticket sales, according to studio estimates Sunday, easily surpassing the box office debuts of the previous 2 AntMan films. The Walt Disney Kong's Quantumania added another 121.3 million overseas to give the pint-sized hero a 225 million global launch. It's easily the largest opening of the year so far, and Quantumania did so despite an atypically poor reception for the 31st MCU film. Quantumania, starring Paul Rudd as Ant-Man, Evangeline Lilly as the Wasp, and Jonathan Majors as Kang the Conqueror, sits at 48% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes, making it the only MCU film to rank as rotten beside Eternals. Audiences also weren't thrilled with Quantumania, giving it a B cinema score. Eternals is the only other MCU film to receive a cinema score that low. Now it's the time for global updates. The body of Ghana soccer player Christian Atsu, who was found dead in his collapsed apartment building in the Turkey earthquake, has been repatriated. Atsu's remains arrived in the Ghanaian capital of Accra late Sunday, said Ghana Vice President Mahmoudou Bawumia, who led a government delegation to receive the body. Atsu's body was carried home in a casket on a Turkish Airlines plane and was accompanied by members of his family and the Ghana ambassador to Turkey, the country's Ministry of Foreign Affairs said. Atsu's body was found in the rubble of a luxury 12-story building in the southern Turkish city of Antakya on Saturday, nearly 2 weeks after the devastating earthquake that has left more than 44,000 people dead in Turkey and neighboring Syria. Reports emerged a day after the earthquake that Atsu had been rescued from the rubble, was alive, and had been sent to the hospital, but they were mistaken. The 31-year-old Atsu, who played for Premier League teams Chelsea and Newcastle, had joined Turkish club Hatayspor last year and scored the winning goal in a league game on February 5, hours before the devastating earthquake struck in the pre-dawn hours of February 6. A people's court put Russian President Vladimir Putin on trial Monday for the crime of aggression over his invasion of Ukraine, in a symbolic move to close an accountability gap in the absence of an international tribunal with jurisdiction. The court has no legal powers, but prosecutors said they will present evidence that Putin committed the crime of aggression by ordering the invasion nearly a year ago, unleashing a devastating war that has killed thousands and left towns and cities in ruins. This is a crime that belongs in the annals of infamy. It is a crime that demands accountability, said Drew White, a Canadian lawyer acting as one of the court's prosecutors. While the International Criminal Court has opened an investigation into crimes committed in Ukraine, it does not have jurisdiction to prosecute Russia's leaders for aggression. Japan's Prime Minister Fumio Kishida on Monday announced a new 5.5 billion financial aid for Ukraine and will mark the first anniversary of the war by hosting an online Group of Seven summit with Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky. Kishida, speaking at a global forum in Tokyo organized by a Japanese think tank, said Ukraine still suffers under the Russian invasion and its people need help to rebuild their daily lives and infrastructure that's been badly damaged by Russian attacks. As this year's president of G7, Kishida said he will host an online summit to be joined by Zelensky on Friday to mark the first anniversary of the Russian invasion. It will be the first time for Kishida to host a G7 summit. Japan has joined the United States and European nations in sanctioning Russia over its invasion and providing humanitarian and economic support for Ukraine. Japan was quick to react because it fears a possible impact of the war in East Asia, where Chinese military has grown increasingly assertive and has escalated tensions around self-ruled Taiwan, which Beijing claims as its territory. Thousands of Japanese fans, some wiping away tears, bid farewell to a beloved Japanese-born giant panda that made her final public appearance Sunday before flying to her home country, China. The panda fans gathered at Tokyo's Inno Zoo for one last look at Jiang, the park's idol since her birth in June 2017. Sunday's viewing was limited to 2,600 lucky ones who owned their tickets in an extremely competitive lottery, but many others who didn't win came anyway to say their goodbyes from outside of the panda house. Though she was born and grew up at the Tokyo Zoo, Jiang, whose parents Riri and Shinshin are on loan from China, must return to that country. China sends pandas abroad as a sign of goodwill but maintains ownership over the animals and any cubs they produce. The animals are native to southwestern China and are an unofficial national mascot. Divided into groups of about 10, the visitors were given only a few minutes to quietly say goodbye to Jiang as she nonchalantly nibbled on bamboo sticks. Viewers held up their mobile phones and cameras to capture her every move. Hundreds of rescuers searched Monday for survivors of landslides and flooding that killed at least 36 people along the coast of Brazil's southern state of São Paulo following a huge weekend downpour. Worst hit was the city of São Sebastião, where at least 35 were dead. In neighboring Ubatuba, a 7-year-old girl was killed. The disaster, in an area famous for beaches flanked by mountains, prompted cancellations in many cities of the carnival festivities just getting underway. Governor Tarcísio de Freitas told television network Globo that another 40 people were missing. His state government said in a statement that nearly 800 people were homeless. Television footage showed flooded homes with only their roofs visible. Residents used small boats to carry items and people to elevated positions. Mayor Augusto said about 50 houses collapsed in the city due to the landslides, and he posted several videos of destruction and search efforts, including one of a baby being rescued by locals lined up on a flooded street. The highway connecting Rio de Janeiro state with São Paulo's port city of Santos was blocked by landslides and floodwaters. A speeding passenger bus crashed off a motorway and overturned in eastern Pakistan, killing at least 14 passengers and injuring 63 others, police and government officials said Monday. The crash happened overnight near the town of Kalarkahar in Punjab province, a deputy commissioner, Kuratulin Malik, said. She said all the dead and injured had been moved to a hospital. She provided no further details, and police said they were still investigating the cause. Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, in a statement, expressed his deep grief and sorrow over the loss of lives in the crash and ordered authorities to provide the best possible medical treatment to the injured. Anti-war German movie All Quiet on the Western Front won 7 prizes, including Best Picture at the British Academy Film Awards on Sunday, building the somber drama's momentum as award season rolls toward its climax at next month's Oscars. Irish tragicomedy The Banshees of Inisherin and rock biopic Elvis took 4 prizes each. All Quiet, a visceral depiction of life and death in the World War I trenches based on Erich Maria Remarque's classic novel, won Edward Berger the Best Director awards. Its other trophies included Adapted Screenplay, Cinematography, Best Score, Best Sound, and Best Film Not in English. Austin Butler was a surprise Best Actor winner for Elvis. Buzz Luhrmann's flamboyant musical also won trophies for casting, costume design, and hair and makeup. Cate Blanchett won the Best Actress prize for orchestral drama Tar. Martin McDonagh's Banshees, the bleakly comic story of a friendship gone sour, was named Best British Film. Now it's time for business news. Today's New York stock close price is 15,840.16. The NYSE composite is decreased by 33.62 points or 0.21%. Tokyo stock close price is 27,531.94. The Nikkei 225 index is increased by 18.81 points or 0.07%. Shanghai stock close price is 3,290.3383. The Shanghai Composite Index is increased by 66.31 points or 2.06%. Hong Kong stock close price is 20,886.96. The Hang Seng Index is increased by 167.15 points or 0.81%. Bombay stock close price is 60,691.54. The Sensex Index is decreased by 311.03 points or 0.51%. Let's have a look on today's sports stories. Jason Tatum put on a record-setting show and made Giannis Antetokounmpo look like a genius. Tatum scored an All-Star Game record 55 points on his way to winning MVP honors, and Team Giannis ended LeBron James' hold on All-Star captain supremacy by beating Team LeBron 184-175 in the NBA's annual Showcase exhibition on Sunday night. Tatum had 27 points in the third quarter, another All-Star Game record for any period. He was the first pick by Antetokounmpo in the starters portion of the All-Star draft, and in the end, that pick proved to be the right one. And the MVP award Tatum was given is named for Kobe Bryant, one of his heroes. Tatum broke Anthony Davis' All-Star record of 52 points. He was 22 of 31 from the floor, plus had 10 rebounds and 6 assists. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. has had a roller coaster career in which he had to fight to keep a job, lost his seat at a NASCAR powerhouse team, and opened his 14th season mired in a 5-year losing streak. To say this Daytona 500 was a milestone race was an understatement for Stenhouse and for NASCAR. Stenhouse won the Daytona 500 in double overtime and under caution Sunday night in the longest running of the Great American Race. The two overtimes pushed the 65th running of the race to a record 212 laps, a dozen laps beyond the scheduled distance and a whopping 530 miles. It provided anxious moments before a landmark celebration, the first Daytona 500 winning team co-owned by a black man and a woman. Stenhouse's win for JTG Dirty Racing was the third of his career. JTG is the first single-car team to win the Daytona 500 since the Wood Brothers Racing did it with Trevor Bayne in 2011. Let's have a look on today's weather forecast. That's all in today's news. Keep watching Millennium News 24 for latest updates. Millennium TV USA and Millennium News 24 network is transmitted and available to be watched free for all at TVs such as Sony, Samsung, LG, Roku TV, Amazon TV and Apple TV. And also in all European countries and Australia available with the Sky Network, Worldwide Jago TV, Radiant IPTV, Worldwide Jago BD Network and Horizon Satellite globally. Stay connected with us for all types of informative and entertainment program. Thank you.